because I like to play music, and I always did. One of them that I've always thought was unique about them, but one that I couldn't hardly deal with because I like to play music so much, was that they never used musical instruments. They believed that was sinful to use musical instruments, and I never could figure out how they come to that conclusion, because hardly any other religion ever says you shouldn't use.
Right.
And even way back in ancient times, they talk about using musical instruments, but somehow they decided that wasn't the way to do it. And so their singing is very unique. It's the unison singing. They don't sing harmonies. They just sing. Men sing one octave, and women sing a higher octave than they sing. But they all sing together, and then they do what's called line singing. And I understand that has been traced back a long time back into certain places in Europe. And I'm not sure where it all came from, because it's hard to find it any place else. But evidently that was brought from way back. The line singing was, and so that's all unique and very interesting.
They usually one person had the handbook, the songbook. It was just a little bitty songbook, and they would call out the lines, and then the other people would sing the lines.
And
like, and you want to go to heaven, and you want to go to heaven, and then they'd call out another line. Then they'd sing that line. It took 30-40 minutes to sing a song.
right.
That's one thing made the services probably,
Right, yeah.
a long service.
Let's listen to a hymn entitled "A Poor Wayfaring Stranger," led by Elwood Cornett of the Indian Bottom Association of Old Regular Baptists.
Through this world of woe,
while traveling through this world of woe,
if there's no sickness, toil, nor danger,
yet there's no
to which I go.
In that bright world to which I go.
I'm going there to see my Father.
I'm going there to see my Father.
I'm going there no more to roam.
I'm going there no more to roam.
I'm only going over Jordan.
I'm only going over Jordan.
I'm only going over home.
I'm only going
5, 6 preachers all day. Lots of times they had dinner there, you know, dinner on the ground. Everybody brought a dish, and you know, and they had dinner, and they had breaks. You know, one preacher would preach sometimes an hour, and then they'd take a little break, and then another preacher would preach, and there was usually at least anywhere from 3 to 5 preachers. You know, ever. Now they only met. They met, if I can remember right, it was the 3rd Sunday in the month, because you know, nobody had cars. They had a hard time getting there. Most people walked or rode horses.
After I grew a little bit older, to find out that preachers or pastors or bishops or whoever the religious leaders were studying religion. They would study it, and then they would prepare sermons and read, and research, and get their sermons all together. Well, Old Regular Baptists don't believe any of that at all. What they believe is that you're inspired by God to do your sermon, and so they don't prepare sermons. They just walk up and open their mouth and let God guide them.
What comes out,
so
comes out.
Yeah, so they have a very unique way of preaching, you know, that's sometimes referred to in these kinds of religions as charismatic. It's very emotional and intense, and people, the whole congregation really gets into these preachers who are able to do that well.
I notice a lot of times it's like they're singing.
Yeah,
when they're preaching.
yeah, they fall into kind of a set of pattern, you know. They have breathing patterns and sound patterns and all these things that fit into that. And I guess that's considered to be part of the inspiration, how they deliver it. But it's very different from a lot of religions. So it's unique, and it's interesting.
Father and mother, of the drink of the living water. Oh, blessed name today. I know that I have an infant son over there. Oh, blessed name. I feel like there's many of the old patriarchs that's gone on. Brother Nelt Webb, my father and mother, many others, Sister Webb, and many others, Brother Charlie Webb, Brother Lithuanian, the drunk from the well of living water. Oh, blessed name, children, don't you want to go? Don't you want to go to live? Oh, don't you want to go to live with Brother Charlie Webb, Brother Lithuanian, Brother Big Nell, and my father and mother?
It's interesting.
Oh,
but like I said, I was frightened by it when I was young, because it was so loud and so intense, and then later on, as I began to become aware of the messages were also intense and scary, and so I never, even though my whole family, like I said, was a part of that, I was never able to bring myself to, you know, be a integral part of it, because it was just too scary, too intense for me, the way all that, and it still is, actually, even after all these years. I find that to be something that just doesn't sit with me, you know, that intense emotion and the scare factor and all that kind of thing.
Funerals within the Old Regular Baptist Church are another thing that sets them apart from most religions. They usually start upon the death of the person and last up to 72 hours, going on day and night, continuously until burial.
Yeah, 3 days. 3 days at least, and sometimes more. But that was an all-night thing. They weren't left in the church alone. There was a lot of people stayed there all night, and they would sing and preach all night long.
And I could remember hearing about the kind of the guidelines for a funeral and what that meant, how all these things were done. And so part of the tradition had to do with the fact that